Well, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this real quick. We are confused about where African Americans come from. You got some people say, "Oh, I'm American Indian," or "I am Solani," or "I'm just, I'm a regular person. We don't look nothing like Africans, right?" Well, in the ideal world, right, pygmies don't look like Sudanese, but they live on the same continent. And this is what I'm going to equate this to, right? My haplogroup is E1b, not I2A, Boken, right? I don't think it's Boken. I don't remember seeing Boken, right? It's E1b. So at some point, when you read that declaration that was signed by Rahm Emanuel in Chicago when he was the city mayor, and it says we got permission from the ancient pharaohs to come to America. Pharaoh, ancient Pharaoh. Like a lot of people miss that part when it says that, right? What is a city person doing signing off on something so religious sounding? What is a city person? What is a municipal person doing signing off on something so religious sounding, right? And we forget that it's churches next to mosque, and it's churches next to city buildings, and it's churches next to establishments and stuff, right? E1b. That's I'm 62%. I think what's over 62% E1b. So if I'm over 62%, this must mean that Moorish story is true. Cause look, this is E1b right here, Berber. So at some point, America and Africa had to be connected through some land right here. Cause you can see there's parts right here that's kind of like floating. So at some point, there must have been some crossing all the way over here across the land bridge. There had to be, because look, all these groups didn't exist before, but now they're existing. So you got Berber, E1b, Egypt, E1b, Niger Congo, E1b. Then you got the Dogon, E1a. How many of us are E1a? You see what I mean? So like someone is going to like really try to find this out one day and try to be like, what are we? What are we? They're going to be very confused. And the white man, right? He got it set up simple. All the information is online. He can't block the information that's online because Africa is in control of most of the sources that are on the internet. Most of this information is coming from Africa. The white man don't know much about Africa. He's just not interrupting the networks. He don't know much about Africa. So you got E1b right here, Austronesian. Austronesia, right? That's like my main phenotype, Austronesian. That's my main phenotype. But when I look at my grandparents, I see Cushatic. My grandfather Hezekiah Cushatic. Um, Let me see who else. My grandfather Roundtree Cushatic. Um, my grandmother, right? Betty May. She would probably be um Bantua Khoisan. You see what I mean? like we are really like far behind as far as like sense. You know what I mean? Like, some people got a lot of common sense and some people just don't have a lot of common sense. You know, I've been saying I'm a Moor since like 20 2014 when it got reintroduced to me. When it got reintroduced to me. Um and the person who was teaching me about it, right? You know, he went the American Indian route. He stopped saying he was a Moor, you know. And it's funny too because he blocked me off Facebook when he saw the content I was posting because I was posting a lot of content about Africa, right? So he blocked me. And but it just goes to show you, like, this colorism thing, this lineage thing, this lineage based thing, it's one of those things where you just gotta really look at it from afar and kind of just stand back and just watch it unfold. Um, you know, Sometimes I ask myself, how did I end up in America? Because it's like the people who I see and the people I'm around, they look nothing like me. You know what I mean? Like, even in my community base, like, the people don't look nothing like me, right? A lot of people are very light skinned. Like, even in my own family, right? I saw the part where, like, the part of my family was like very dark skinned, like my cousins, right? My cousin Phil, my cousin JC, my cousin Charlie, like, those are the people who I grew up with, right? My cousin Jamari, um, close cousins, right? You know, the women, they decided, to have children who all look alike in that sense. But you can kind of see where it's families like where they are growing apart from that. Like, we aren't reproducing because people have been introduced to this idea of not being old fashioned, but more so being like newly, in a sense where everything is kind of breaded to them, where it's like, we have to be fancy about what we do. White is white is pure. They want, because we've been through this before, right? Because a lot of us have white blood. We've been through this before. Um, and this may, a lot of people, right? I heard the Senegalese brother who I'm friends with on TikTok. He was saying it in Wolof. He was like, we're in the last days. He posted a lot of content about the Quran, and I'm like, I really like this information he get it. He a bodybuilder. I really like this information that he be giving because it's like he gets it perfectly, right? He knows because he's up there in New York. So, like, he knows how the influence is really grabbing people, because he up there with Nicki Minaj, and you saw the cooning she did with Donald Trump. So it's like a lot of our people, man, we're gonna have new colonizers in the future, right? And we're talking about our African people. They're already setting it up for it to be like this, right? Because they got a lot of, like, when I'm on TikTok, right, my algorithm, it pushes to me like a lot of light skinned people, and they talk about stuff like, they hate Africa, how Africa enslaved us, how they're not African and how they're American Indian. A lot of light skinned black people, right? They'll say things like black doesn't belong to Africans, and it's exclusively for them. And I'm thinking to myself, like, did you read these census records? Like, where it says, like, are you a descendant of these groups, these black racial groups in Africa? That's what it says. It doesn't say black racial groups in America. So, like, it's confusing in that sense, right? So you have a lot of people who have this thing where, like, they're going along with other groups of people who don't necessarily have a close knit base with Africans, right? Like, you're even seeing Latinos pop up in places like Sierra Leone. Um, so you see that, you know what I mean? And it's like, you know, they don't really like that influence. And sometimes like I be like thinking like, why am I going around like certain areas, or I'm going around like, places where these people would typically be seen at, because that makes me look like an eyeball out. Because like, even though like they may have mothers or fathers or brothers or cousins who are very dark skinned, they may be the only person who's like saying these things. But like when I'm on the internet, I see a lot of that activity, and that makes me very uncomfortable. That also makes me aware of the fact that I have to be um, cautious about my safety. You know what I'm saying? That's why I don't really go around places where it's just like a lot of urban, you know, um, newly urban based people at. You know what I mean? I haven't really found a name for them. Um, I can come up with a name, but that Niji community. That's what they call themselves, Niji. Um, and then you got the dark skinned people in America, right, who call themselves, star seeds. So it's like, you know, even the terms that we use, the pronouns and stuff like that, like a lot of that stuff needs to be rectified and be very specific about who is who. Cause like even when I look at the Zamont, I like how the Zamont do it, right? They already say like the founder of Zamont, I think that's what it's called, Zamont. He was like, what we call ourselves, he was like, what we call ourselves is based off the fact that we believe in racial purity. We only believe in mixing dark skin with dark skin. We don't believe in mixing like out of that. You know what I'm saying? So like I agree with that, because like it has to be some type of genetic survival. Cause like the way they got it now, like you can be dark skinned and you can be with a light skinned woman. The child is gonna come out light skinned most of the time. It's not gonna come out dark skinned. Like a lot of people like to say dark skin genes are very strong, but like they have done something in the chemical clouding where it's just like the kids, they're not coming out the way that we would have thought they would. And they're coming out very lighter than usual. And I think that's a contribution to like the environment and the food that we're eating, and also the lack of sun we're getting in America. Um, Cause like Africa is not having any of the problems that we having, like social problems. Africa's not having that, and they're way more colonized than we are, because you know their governments aren't like you got Egypt up there, you got Tunisia, you got Algeria. Them the countries all been invaded. Those are countries we were originally in, African Americans. E1b. Like if you do your haplogroup testing, your genetic testing, it's going to say you're E1b if you're African American. So I did mine on My True Ancestry, mytrueancestry.com. Ancestry DNA is not going to tell you your haplogroups. Um, Andros is not going to tell you your haplogroups. I don't even think GD matching is going to tell you your haplogroups. But I know My True Ancestry will tell you your haplogroups. So like I'll be thinking a lot of the times, like when I'm really trying to figure things out, man, it's like what are people going to surmise this thing to really mean in the end? Like what is this really all going to be about? Because if you have a bias towards not wanting to be around a certain group of people, this means you will be willing to replace them and steal everything that they have. This means that you will ultimately wipe them out. And I think you have a lot of that sort of thinking coming up in some of the ill spots in America, right? You have a lot of people that's thinking like that, where they want to replace people, and they want to replace their profile, their genetic makeup. They want to replace their whole existence. And I think that's kind of sad, actually. You know what I'm saying? So this FBA movement, that's what I would call them. I wouldn't call them Niji, because I don't really know where that word Niji came from, but they're really FBA. That's what they really are. Um, they're really FBA. I don't really know if they're Solani. Um, they could be Solani, but I would say they're more FBA. You know, because a lot of these acronym organizations, you see them a part of that type of stuff. Um, you know, because we had the acronym organizations in Chicago back in the 90s. They all were taken out by the federal government. So like a lot of these people, I'm not sure if they even aware of that, but like they're going down that route, where they're talking about their foundation black Americans and stuff like that, and their FBA. That's an acronym organization that always been taken out by the federal government. So we saw that, we saw that in the 60s with the Black Panthers. We saw that in the 60s with the organizations in Chicago. So yeah. So I would never say I'm FBA. I would never say I'm Foundational Black American. I would never say nothing like that. Because that doesn't connect you. That doesn't connect you to the family. Like I would say I'm E1b before anything, because that connects you to that connects you to a university thought. In a university sense, where it talks about knowledge about science and stuff like that, that connects you to that. Like I'm looking at it right here, it's visual. It's backing by science. It's not radical. It's not a radical thought to say you're an E1b. Like he would have made more sense if he really would have took that instead of taking that from Claude Anderson, right? He would have made more sense just saying E1b instead of saying Foundational Black American. Instead of saying FBA, he just made more sense saying E1b. That would have made more sense. That would have been catchy too if you, like, imagine if they would have been like, we're E1b, like how much confusion that would have stopped. They're not trying to like stop any confusion by claiming these acronyms. That's what I don't understand. Because it doesn't connect you to anything. It's just it's urbanized, which means it's incomplete. You know what I mean? Like it's churchy. It isn't profound at all. So, and I want to say some other things too. I want to give a shout out to YouTube. They gave me some notifications, acknowledging me to be top listener of Kodak Black and his 1%. I play one of his songs a lot. Let me see who else. Okay, it's not showing. Yeah, it's not showing. So, and yeah, I want to give a shout out. Kodak Black and a lot of other people who are making content on YouTube who I'm supporting. They just gave me some notifications on that. So I like how my channel is going too. I like how my channel is going. I always get negative feedback from people who don't have pictures on their profile. Like they have no content. They just like, they look like dummy accounts. They just come on and say negative things. So that lets me know I'm doing something good, I get negative feedback, so, and I used to get a lot of positive feedback, but a lot of people, right, they'll stop supporting you when they really catch on to what you're trying to do and your point you're trying to get across. They don't like your experiences neither. You may be looked at as too masculine. They'll stop supporting you. So that's how I like it, right? I don't. If you don't understand what I'm saying, then this channel may not be for you. You know what I'm saying? Because I bring the stuff I talk about is like ultimately not literal, but it's more science. It's more scientifically backed. It's not literal, so it's like it's not something you can kind of like climb your way out of with, words or any type of allegory or any thoughts like that. Like, nah, everything is scientifically backed. Like I talk about DNA, haplogroups. I talk about the sun chartings, the moon chartings. Like a lot of my old videos are like my best videos because I did it. I was outside in nature. So I like the way my channel is set up. I have an archive of good videos. You know what I mean? have a good archive. So for anybody out there, right, you African American, right, and you're confused about what's going on in the country, you know, people saying they not African, people saying they only American. Um, this all you gotta do. Find out what E1b went. That's all you gotta do. Find out what E1b went. And then when you're on mytrueancestry.com and you see that you are E1b, right? It's going to give you the entire crossing genetic makeup of which E1b1 you are. You know what I mean? And it's going to give you all your other haplogroups too. Like I think I'm M as well. That's connected to the Adam and Eves. And you know that Jawa and the Adam and Eves are the same people, and they were in America before the Native Americans by thousands of years. Somehow they ended up in India. I don't know how. You know, so this is a lot of things we gotta uncover, and this is going to take a lot of searching with DNA, not necessarily with authors and books. This is going to have to take a lot of genetic tracing. We're going to have to like dig stuff out the ground. We're going to have to follow trails. Like we're going to have to get to that degree, and that's going to take funding. But that's just like for later on, and you really don't even have to find that out. But it would be good if you do, you know. But you know where we're at right now, we need our own archaeologists. We need our own excavation, and the fact that they're doing it for us just makes it even easier because they are indebted. But the fact that you have white scholars and Chinese scholars, they're doing it for us, that just makes it even easier. So, you know, find out what E1b went, you know, find out where they went, how they ended up where they are. You know what I mean? So this means right here, right? When you talk about the Dogon and they say, we come from series series A and series B, right? Well, here go the star right here, the star series. This means we must have came out of the sky and landed right here, and we spread out. You know what I mean? Like people just think this stuff is about land. We came out the sky, bro. Like some of us came out the water. Like this is not about, you know, this is not about what people think it's about. They just think this is about land and, you know, living in a house or living, you know, on some land for 40 years and 80 years and 200 years or something like that, leaving a legacy. It's not about that, bro. This is a global phenomenon that we're talking about. Like our our arrival in this world. This is something we need to find out. You know, like why is all this stuff like this? Like just looking at it, right? It looks crazy just looking at it, right? It looks like colorful and like what is all this about? That's what we need to find out. You know? You know? Because I'm hunted by the idea, right, that we're about to have a civil war on this land, right? Where possibly Africans can start being attacked by other racial groups. And this could be ultimately of our own doing because we created everybody. You see what I mean? So it's like, how do we get ourselves in a better situation where we can just like say, what the heck, you know, we're out of here. You know what I mean? And that's what we need to figure out. This is not about trying to get land and recover land. And this not about that at all. This not about my great auntie saying we was American Indian, saying we was Native American. This not about that at all. Hey, this is about how can we get solace in our own galaxy and how can we protect it. This is like Dragon Ball Z. How can we protect our galaxy from invaders? This is like Star Wars. That's the point we're at. How can we control the satellites, control what we see and hear? This is about that. Because if you can't control what you see and hear, whatever's going to grow out that ground, it's not going to be good for you. Because what grows out that ground sees and hears what you see and hear. It's not going to be good for you. You know what I mean? It's like frequency. So that's pretty much all I want to say for now. This is going to be another good video that I've done. This right here be probably the most controversial video I've done. So I'm going to leave it up, and hopefully I can get it to the right Africans that needs to hear this. I'm just one African. I need to get this to many Africans who needs to hear this, because a lot of us are just clueless right now. We're not thinking right. So we're not thinking right. Great peace.